Michael,
That was good timing.
wow.
Happy Father's Day.
I know, isn't that something? Wow,
Crazy. How fun. Oh, look at my kitchen. Look at that.
look at that, beautiful.
I got a nice surprise today. My daughter, who lives about an hour and a half, a little further. Oh, sorry.
Oh, look at that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
My daughter and her husband, my son-in-law, live about an hour and a half, hour 45 up in New Hampshire. She's coming down for dinner later today.
Nice.
And the surprise for
Oops, you froze up.
her, washing the stained glass windows.
Oh, look
Oh,
at that, huh?
he hasn't seen any, so she's going to walk in today at 3 or whenever she gets here and like freak out. This is so cool.
Oh, she hasn't seen it yet?
Nothing, right? And it's funny
Wow.
because my contractor, who really became my friend, Joe Brackett, for anybody who needs some outstanding construction in the Worcester County area, um, just sent me a text message this morning. I opened it up. It was one of those like photo albums that said 1 year ago, and it was in shambles, and they had just put the stained glass in, but it was ripped down to the studs. Pretty funny. So that was fun to get this morning.
Wow.
A lot of fun stuff to get this morning, including your email about our 53rd or so episode, No Hissy Fit Zone.
53rd or 53rd?
53rd,
So it's not the third, it's the third.
third. It's like that fantasy, like the first third bank. I never know what that means. Fifth third bank.
You know what that was?
I have no idea.
Where the bank was at the corner of First and Third Street or whatever avenue.
So it was first third bank.
First, Third Bank. Yeah, so it's because of two streets that it doesn't really care. It doesn't really matter because I don't have any money there.
So so when the bank expanded and they opened up a second location, it was the second third bank, hence the fifth location being the fifth third bank,
I don't know
which makes sense.
why you
Versus it's on the corner of third and fifth, because then you're going to have like what happens to the third bank on the corner of Maple, like the Maple third bank. You can't do that.
no.
No, that's wrong. Banking regulations and all. Can't do
Yeah,
that.
we should stop talking about them because we don't know what we're talking about.
That's fair. That's fair.
So,
Lots to talk.
Father's Day, right?
Mm,
So I go to Virginia to visit my in-laws and Terry's sister and stuff,
nice.
and my son from Norway, Joshua, and my son from
Oh,
LA, Eric, showed up there.
both your sons did?
Yeah.
Did you know they were coming?
Well, I didn't know.
Ah,
I knew just before it happened, but I didn't know that was going to happen. So it was awesome.
that's amazing.
So Terry's sister has a house in Scottsville, Virginia, just south of Charlottesville,
Yeah.
and their house is really cool. And when you're in the house, you can't see any other houses next to you because it's all trees on both sides.
Oh, nice privacy.
Yeah, and trees in the back. So Tom, her husband, buys I don't know what to say, what to call it, but he buys food and he puts the food for the animals out in the backyard every day. And then there's
Wow.
always two or three reindeer or deer that come in and eat that stuff, and a ton of squirrels. And every once in a while, there's a bear that shows up too.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm sitting there because it's like there's like upstairs saying there's a above ground basement, I guess if you want to call it. So I'm sitting there having my coffee, and then there's a glass door there, stuff. So I'm sitting there in my cup now looking at the thing, and all of a sudden, two deer come out and start eating. I says, "What the heck?" And then another one showed up, so there's three of them all together. I was like, "Wow, this is amazing."
It's so fun when you don't see them often and then you see them. It's amazing. But it's funny because if you see them regularly, like they didn't really care, right? Like I have a cousin of mine, Julia. She and her husband Rob live down in New Jersey, like Western Jersey, beautiful area. And I've been at their house once. I was down there for like a pretty big family event a couple of years ago, like an afternoon dinner. So there were a few dozen people there. We have a huge backyard that just kind of goes into the woods eventually. And I'm walking by the way, I look out and there's a deer and I'm like telling everybody, hey, there's a deer in the backyard. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And a half an hour later, there were like 5 of them there. And he's like,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
happens every day, you know. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea. I was freaking out.
yeah. That's what happens there every day. That's cool. It's amazing.
You know what they call a deer that has no eyes?
No idea.
No idea. Look at me starting with the first joke on the No Hissy folks. That's wrong.
Oh, that's not
I lead with the first joke on this. My goodness.
So we're up there for a few days, and then we came back to Oldsmar, Florida, where I live. And then we needed to go to Miami because Terry's passport was expired, and I had to go to the Portuguese consulate.
That's right. I was talking to you that day. You were driving out of Miami.
So I spent 2 days with my friend John Pimentel in um, Pompano Beach. This guy's we've been really good friends since the '70s.
Wow.
Used to play together, put a guitar together and stuff, and just a cool guy. And he's like a gadget guy. He loves stuff. He buys all these Bose stereos, speakers and stereos,
Yeah, yeah.
and refurbishes them and sells them.
Wow.
But in his house, he has like a Bose thing in the kitchen. He has a Bose thing in the living room. He has one in the bedroom. He has one in the bathroom. He has all these Bose things, that all wireless, so you can listen to music on your phone on all those things. It's just crazy, amazing.
I love it. Oh, I loved it. That's fun. That's so cool.
So we had a good time with him. That was nice.
How long is that trip from you to Miami? Is that 4 hours?
Yeah, it's 5 hours really, but I went to Pompano. That was 4 hours.
Right.
Stayed there for 2 days, and then we went down to Miami. Then on the way back it was like a 5 hour drive because I came like across the Alligator Alley to Naples and all the way up to 75.
Nice.
It was fun. Good time.
You
Good.
get,
It was an
you got the
awesome.
pass. You got the passports. You're all set there.
Wow.
That must mean you're planning a trip if you're getting a passport. She's renewing her passport.
Well, she had to renew it anyway, but she has a cousin that's going to be getting married in September in Portugal.
Oh, nice.
So we might go. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, I think you should. That sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah.
That's where she's from, right? She grew up in Lisbon.
Lisbon, yeah.
It's funny, passports have been on my mind. I've been planning a vacation. Lynn and I are going to Nova Scotia this summer, which is so funny because speaking of my dad, Father's Day, so Lynn, as we know, the Keepa is from Canada. So she's Canadian. That's how that works.
She's from Canada?
Yeah.
Hey.
Imagine that. Hey.
Hey.
But she's from Western Canada, Calgary, Alberta. So she's never been to what they call the Maritimes, which is Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Eastern Canada.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she's never been. And years ago, I'm talking, I was in junior high school. My family was planning a vacation that summer to go to Nova Scotia, which is a long way from here. It's like an 11-hour drive from here. From New York was like 15 or 16 hours. And what happened was, I don't know what month this was, my dad's father died. So my grandfather, who I met him a couple of times, I didn't know him. So but he gets a call, his father died, and he goes to Ireland for the funeral. So I'm going to guess, this is probably 1975. 6, somewhere in there. He goes to Ireland for 2 weeks for the funeral, sees his family. My dad was the oldest of 6, and they all stayed in Ireland. So he's the only one who came to the States. So he goes over to see his family, father's funeral. He's getting out of a parked car on the street side, and as he gets out of the car, he's hit by a double-decker bus. My father.
Oh.
And imagine this freaking guy's unbelievable. So he gets stuck between the bus and the car back and forth, and he's on the ground and broke his leg. Long story short, he broke his leg badly. I mean, compound fracture sticking out through the shin. But he remembers looking at his leg saying, okay, that's gone. And like checking the rest of him out, like what else is right? His mother's in the car, his brother's in the car. Like, oh my God. Wow. So instead of being in Ireland for 2 weeks, he was there for 9 months. In the hospital and surgeries, and I imagine the medical technology in the 70s was not as good in Ireland as it was here. So 9 months later, he comes home, and this would have been that fall. I think he went in the wintertime. So we never had a summer vacation. He was there for 9 months. And so we never went to Nova Scotia. That's the story. And we never rescheduled, never. So I've never been. So here, oh boy, this all ties back to the passport. So I'm online this week. We're going first week in August. And I've been starting to plan and book all this stuff. And instead of doing an 11-hour drive, we can drive 5 hours to Bar Harbor, Maine, and drive on to something called the Cat. It's a huge catamaran ferry that will ferry us across to Nova Scotia in 3.5 hours with the car. And as I was making that reservation, they needed our passport numbers because that's international. To go from Maine to Nova Scotia, you forget. But there you go. Long story, but I worked my dad into it, which is easy to do.
Nova means new.
New Scotland. Would that what that means? Scotia?
I don't know, but they keep saying Nova Scotia, but it's not new anymore. It's been around for a long time.
It's been a very long. No applause, not yet.
Wow.
So planning the summer vacation, that should be fun. It's we've been talking about it for a while, and then I realized like that's in 6 weeks. And a friend of mine said, "So what do you got planned?" And I go, "Well, nothing yet." And he said, "You better get going on this, like ferry reservations and Airbnbs." And so I'm like, "Man, he's right." He panicked me. And one morning this week, I had a kind of a home office morning, and didn't have a work appointment until noon. So I spent a few hours, and I made huge progress with just getting a location, directions, what we're going to do, kind of the ideas, the reservations we need. And it helps you kind of get excited about it. Like, okay, now I'm really like pumped. I've been watching YouTube videos about what to do in Nova Scotia, and it's going to be fun. We might have to do a No Hissy Fit Zone episode from Nova Scotia.
Wow, that could be done.
That could be done.
You could probably even do it on the ferry.
Wow. What if the ferry's got internet access? Well,
Oh,
for the
yeah.
cost of the ferry, they better have internet access with a prime rib dinner, quite frankly,
That's
and
right.
lobster tails for an appetizer.
Appetizer, yeah.
I imagine there's going to be some nice seafood in Nova Scotia, and should be fun. Should be
I like
fun.
seafood. I see food and I like it.
I was going to say, it sounds like a setup for something. So the country band, I got to show you a great picture I got sent to me. I felt like a rock star the other night. The country band, the country trio, we had that big gig last month at Off the Rails in Worcester, which is an amazing venue. And from that, Nate Ramos of the Nate Ramos Band, that's the band I play in, got the warm-up slot for kind of a up-and-coming, about to break Nashville guy named Travis Denning, who's got a record deal out. He's got some great stuff. Check him out on YouTube. It's just good stuff. Travis Denning. So we were warming up for him. So all of our rehearsals went from learning 53 songs for that country cover night to taking Nate's original songs, and he's an acoustic guy, him and an acoustic, and we had to build band around it. So we formulated 10 of his songs, and we did a 10-song warm-up set to this crowd of hundreds. It was so awesome. And the compliments was incredible. People were like grabbing us saying, "You guys were amazing." And then he had a photographer come. And so he sent me this picture yesterday, which I want to share with you and the gang here. Feeling like a rock star. That.
Oh, look at that, huh?
It was fun. And my drums are set up right in front of the drums for the Travis Denning band. I met him, the drummer, but people were really complimentary. Like, "You guys are onto something. This is all Nate's original stuff." And so we have the traction. The traction's there, but the appetite for country music is huge. So we have gigs September, October, November, December, all the way through the end of the year.
Wow.
Pretty awesome. So we're having some fun.
Have you bought a cowboy hat yet?
I had not bought a cowboy hat, but if you noticed, I was wearing that kind of sleeveless little deal. I put it on, and we had like a green room. I mean, it was hysterical. I mean, it's awesome, but this is all new to me, And so I put the shirt on. It was like, it kind of looked country. The sleeves ripped up, it had snap buttons. And Nate says, "Man, you're going to look the most country up there." It was fun. It was fun to be back in the green room with the three of us and like planning, okay, we're going to go on at 1 minute to 8 because we had a 46-minute set and had to be done at 8:45. And we're like, all right, so let's AJ and I go up first, and you spend a minute, and then because you're the guy, Nate Ramos band, and so it was fun. It was like it was kind of dark, and going up the stairs onto the stage, and people can kind of see you, but they start to applaud because they know what's about to happen. And I get behind the drums, and AJ's over there waiting for Nate to come up. It was just like, wow, this is amazing. If I had a little wristband that said all access, and it was a great time.
That's awesome, yeah.
And it was fun to play for 45 minutes only and be done, and then be able to be down in the audience with our friends who came. And Nate set up a merchandise table, and Lynn was working the table, and he's selling T-shirts and all sorts of stuff. It was a really special night.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
suspect it'll be one of many. So it was pretty cool.
So I don't know if I told you this or not, so if I already did, just pretend like you never heard it before, and it's an interesting story. So I was at Walmart. I'm going down the aisle with my cart. There was a couple coming my way. When they got to me, the lady said, "Hey, Mr. Pride and Joy, how are you?"
No way.
Yeah. So I said, "Wow." And then I said, "Oh, wait, I know you guys." She says, "Yeah, you guys used to come to Silver King when we played in the Vicious." Not only did we did, we went there every time you guys played. And just so you'll know, you were our favorite guy in the band because you're the only one that ever talked to us. We'd get there early, and you'd come over to the table and show us a Pride and Joy, and you'd tell us a couple of jokes. And you always, even during the breaks, you'd come over and talk to us, but you talk to everybody else because you're just going around talking to people. I said, "Yeah, well, that's what I do." Yeah, she goes, "Yeah." So that was so sad when we went there and you weren't there anymore. I said, "Well, I guess
Stuff happens.
I think that Silver King Brewery just closed down or something."
Oh, really?
Yeah,
See that?
so somebody told me, but I don't know.
You leave the band, and then the band doesn't support the place like it used to, and the place goes out of business because you left the band. It's crazy. It would have been really fun if you were walking up that aisle in Walmart and you had your upside down logo T-shirt when they saw you.
I told you about the guy that saw us at the Starbucks, and Tom had the shirt with the upside down logo.
You got somebody else who's wearing that shirt?
Yeah, my friend Tom Toscano. Because when he saw my shirt, he goes, "Man, I got to get one of those." I got him one.
You're going to sell more of those than the band sells of their regular logo shirts.
So he was wearing it at Starbucks, and this guy says, "Hey, Starbucks." Oh, not Starbucks, I'm sorry. "Hey, Oyster Bone, I know Oyster Bone." So I walked over and says, "You do?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah." I says, "How do you know them?" He says, "Well, I used to see you guys play all the time." I says, "Well, you haven't been there in a while, have you?" He goes, "No." I says, "Yeah, I'm not in the band anymore."
They're not so good anymore.
So he says, "So what's the deal with when he saw the logo and he read it?" I says, "But did you even notice that it's upside down?" He goes, "Huh?" He goes, "No, I didn't notice that because you can still read it when it's upside down."
Right.
He didn't even realize it was upside down. So he says, "What's the deal with that?" I says, "Well, I told him a
Brain can
story.
do that. Yeah.
Told him a story that I started the band, and first guy I brought in was John." He goes, "Well, John is my friend." I says, "Yeah, well, now you can tell him that you met a guy that had the Oyster Bone logo upside down, and that'll shake him up a little bit."
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny, yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. So we've talked about this quite a bit, but Nuno's just on fire, man.
I was just going to bring it up. I was just going to bring it up because we've been waiting. So June 9th, which was a week ago Friday, I was flying to Florida that day just for a day. But that was the day that the whole new album, Six, dropped. I guess we'll talk like the young kids. The album dropped. I guess if I'm talking like young kids, I can't even say album anymore, but you know what I mean. So, so there's that.
There it is, yeah.
Six is the name of the album. And so as you and I know, they've released 4 singles over the past month and a half, 2 months. First one was Rise, and he was starting to get a lot of notoriety for that solo, and everybody was talking about it. And so, did you watch? You did, because you told me the Rick Beato interview.
Watched the whole thing, 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. So we started one night because I mean we love this, and it was like I don't know, it was after 9 o'clock, and I'm like, well, listen, let's start it. And before I know it's 11:30 and it's over, like it was amazing. And Rick just kind of lets him go, and Nuno can really just talk, but he just speaks from the heart, and he keeps your attention, and it's phenomenal. And of course, he's playing, and it was great. But so I mean, magazine covers with a lot of talk about this Rise solo. Then the next song comes out, Rebel, which might be my favorite of the first four. Completely different vibe, completely different music video. I thought it was much more of a Gary vocal song.
Yeah.
And then the next one was Banshee, which is another crazy rock song, completely different vibe in the music videos. I'm like, I'm loving what they're doing. And then they came out with the fourth one, which was The Other Side of the Rainbow, which is this beautiful kind of rock pop ballad love song out on Pacific Coast Highway on this hillside. And then the rest of the album. But have you heard the rest of it? I'm loving this.
No, but I was watching a video this morning with an interview with I think his name is Alan Allendorf or something. He's a really good guitar player. I've been watching him for years. And he was interviewing Nuno, and it's just they're talking musician stuff. It was just amazing.
Guys, the rest of the album is incredible. There's so much diversity to it. There's another ballad that's almost not quite more than words, but I could see the two of them sitting and doing this live. It's beautiful. And then there's some really, I mean, they got very creative. There's a song that feels like it's almost like inspired by Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. And it's amazing. I love every single one of the tracks.
So, I like the band a lot, and I like each individual in the band, but I called an attorney this week. I'm going to sue him.
Of course you are.
Oh, yeah, because they used my photo for the cover there.
I was telling your story to a friend of mine this week about Nuno stealing your joke. And you walked in the backstage. Well, now you're stealing my jokes?
I told you what he said, right?
Finish it here. We won't finish that story here because we're a clean show. We're a clean podcast. But my friend was laughing his head because he loves Nuno. And I go, I got a great story for you.
So here's the deal. Without using the language, he said, "Hey, don't be like that."
I thought he said something like,
he said,
F you got a lot of them.
Yeah, he said, yeah, F you got tons of jokes. I'm not, you stole my joke. He goes, oh, don't worry about it. You
got plenty.
You got plenty. I says, wow.
And that was about your favorite Italian, right? The guitar player?
Yeah, wow.
Oh my gosh. That is funny. But it's I will encourage you to enjoy the rest of that album. It's all over the place, and it's amazing. Lynn hasn't heard it either, so we just got to take a drive and just listen. We almost did it this morning because our original plan was Sunday morning we go out and get lost and go have breakfast somewhere, but we were going to head towards Hampton Beach because this weekend we were there 2 years ago, and it was amazing. Hampton Beach, they do this sandcastle competition. I mean,
wow.
These are like these artists who build these sandcastles. It's insane. And they actually bring in special sand. I mean, here we are at this beach, Hampton Beach, but they're bringing in sand, which is, I don't know, better for building sandcastles. And so we went up 2 years ago because it was over, but all the castles are up. So you just kind of walk around the beach. It was fun. So we're going to do it today. And we're going to listen to the album on the way up because she hasn't heard the whole thing yet. And then she got not stuck, she was hoping to do. So she's working an open house this afternoon with a realtor. She's doing an open house for them right here in Worcester, though. And then we'll do dinner tonight with the kids. So be fun. So she hasn't heard it yet either, but it's amazing. I should play you some over there. No, it doesn't translate well. I'm trying to remember some of these. Small Town, beautiful. Oh, The Mask. Wait till you hear this, The Mask. And so it's fascinating to me. Like, I guess I'll just call them the haters. I'm on an extreme specific Instagram page. And for some reason, people think they have.
I don't know if you can see that.
Oh my God, I can see it. That's amazing. So that's a sandcastle right there, that woman. And that must be the artist. It's crazy.
It looks like a real person. It's amazing.
Totally. Yeah. To use the term sandcastle, it doesn't really do it justice because now you can get a feel for what goes on. It's amazing. And I was saying to Lynn, that was last year, wasn't it? And she goes, no, that was 2 years ago, because almost exactly a year ago, I had my knee surgery, my knee replaced. So, in fact, the 9th, the day I flew to Orlando, was the 1 year anniversary of my knee replacement.
So one of my brother-in-laws had a knee surgery on one leg. And he had a real tough time with it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then now he's getting better, so he's doing the other leg too, the other knee as well.
I knew someone, a few people had both done at the same time. I
Oh boy.
can't even imagine based on what I went through with the recovery. And it's been good, but I can't imagine doing two at once. In fact, when we're wrapped up here, I'm taking off for a nice long walk this morning through the city. And that's my thing. I love that. Put my earbuds in, I got my podcast, and I'm going to go do a long one and get back and get ready for our children guests for dinner tonight.
There
Like
you
to
go.
grill steak, and
That's awesome.
looking forward to it.
Huh.
Looking forward to it. It's funny. I'm thinking about. I said Orlando, so my flight's getting home. So I flew down Friday, flew home Saturday, and I go out of Worcester, which I love to do because it's so easy. God. So I'm flying Saturday night out of Worcester, out of Orlando, 6 p.m. flight to JFK, and then a 2-hour layover and a little 30-minute thing to Worcester. So we get on the plane for a 6 o'clock departure in Orlando, and we're on the plane. I'm in the very last row with this sweet woman and her son. She's from Puerto Rico. Now my friend, and her son was probably 10, and we're on the very back row of the plane, and we're ready to go. The doors closed. The pilot's talking to us. He says, "We're going to sit here and wait this storm out because it was raining and there was some lightning, but hopefully get going in the next 15, 30 minutes." So we're sitting there. And I mean, it was weird to hear, when you're in a low roof building and it's raining and it's hitting the roof so hard you can feel it. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing in the plane. And there was some lightning out there. So finally, an hour later, he comes back on and says, "So folks, as we were sitting here, the plane was struck by lightning, which apparently is not unusual. I guess they're built for this. But he says, we have to have maintenance come out now." So we're still waiting. And then he comes back on and says, "So maintenance has determined that because of the lightning strike, this plane is now out of service. So we're going to get off the plane." So we all deplane, learn that word. And now it's 8 o'clock. So I have missed my connection in New York to get to Worcester. So I realized, okay, I'm not getting home tonight. And I had two very important meetings on Sunday. And so I'm like, okay, I mean, it was a big test of patience and dealing with stuff. So now there's a few hundred people, a lot of them who are going to stop at JFK. We're hoping to get onto another plane. If you're at a connecting flight like me, you got to get in this line. And so I get up to this line after another hour. I mean, it's just, wow, it's very trying. And I try to have a smile because she's just dealing with so many unhappy people. And I go, "How you doing?" Right. And so I said, "I was trying to get to Worcester." And she says, "I can't even get you to Worcester tomorrow, Sunday." And I'm like, "How is that possible?" And I booked the flight. There were some Sunday options. And she's like, "Well, there's not anymore." And she says, "But I can get you to Boston tonight, direct flight to Boston." And I'm like, "I could care less about the luggage. Get me to Boston." So I get on that one. So I walk down to that gate. It's a half-mile walk to get to that one. We're waiting. It's getting late. Now it's probably almost 11. And as you're sitting there getting ready, he gets on. He says, "Okay, the Boston flight's been canceled because we couldn't get a flight here from Tampa because of the weather. So Boston's canceled." So I go back up to him and I go, "I'm just trying to get to Worcester." And he's like, "You're trying to get to Worcester?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I can get you to Providence." I go, "I'll take it." So I go back down to yet another gate. At 11:30, we actually take off for Providence, direct flight. We land in Providence. It's about 2:15 in the morning. My luggage, I have no idea where that is. It's not on the Providence flight. It wasn't even the Boston flight. It was on the Worcester flight, but that got canceled. I'm like, they'll figure that out later. And I had an Uber. I'm like, all right. So I bring up Uber, and I've had such confidence in this. Every time I use Uber, it's been great in terms of quickness and no one's coming to get me because it's 2:30 in the morning in Providence, and I got to go to Worcester. And I remember I had Lyft on my phone, but I've never used it. And so I actually reloaded the Lyft app, which is just the Uber competitor. And I had to upload my card information and all the stuff. And finally, a Lyft guy comes by. I think it was after 3 in the morning by the time he came to get me, probably 3:10. And he got me to Worcester, and I walked in the door at 4 in the morning. I took a shower and went to bed probably 4:30. And I'm like, well, I'm home because the important thing was my meeting the next afternoon. And which thankfully went terrific. But it's funny, you're thinking, I'm going to sleep all morning. I was up at like 7:50. I'm like, how is this possible? I went down to the bathroom, and I'm like, Gosh, I got to bed 3.5 hours ago. That's not enough, but I think I slept on the flight. Anyway, and then somehow, oh yeah, that's right. Later that night, I went up to the airport in Worcester, and they're open every day, but they're closed from 10 to 2. And my meeting was in Boston at 3. So on the way home from the meeting, I was headed to Worcester Airport because they're open till 5:45. And my GPS said I was going to get there at 5:41 to get my luggage, which I really kind of wanted that night. And this woman called me, and I didn't know the number. I'm like, hello. And she's like, yeah, I'm calling from JetBlue in Worcester. I said, I'm on my way to see you. So I was able to get my bag that day. Crazy.
Nice, huh?
Crazy, crazy.
So you mentioned something about the bathroom. When I'm with people and they say, well, I got to go to the bathroom. I say, listen, when you go in there, if you mention my name, you'll get a good seat.
Oh my God, that's
Wow.
awesome. I just look, you know what? Time flies when you're having fun. I looked and said, okay, let's see if we can wrap this up before Zoom wraps it up for us.
Yeah, they're
We
getting
often
ready
try.
to.
We try to get a nice. Let's land the plane, and we get close, and then something else happens, and all of a sudden Zoom decides we're done, not us. We
Yeah.
should take control.
Yeah, we're almost out of time.
We're almost out of time.
Yeah.
Well, have a happy Father's Day, my friend. I was hoping to tell stories about our dads tonight, but oh my God, there's so many
Oh,
of
yeah.
them where to begin.
I was going to tell you a couple of stories about my dad, but we're not. We got sidetracked. It's okay.
Do you have a favorite one?
Well, it's an amazing thing actually. He was working at a regular job at Digital.
What was your dad's first name?
Manuel.
Manuel.
So he started selling these waterless cookware, pots and pans,
Yeah.
and he was making more money part time doing that than he was at his job. So one day he said to me, "Hey Tony, what are you doing Saturday?" I says, "Why?" He says, "I want you to go with me to Taunton. Taunton, Mass there."
Yeah, Tom
Okay, so what are
Mass.
we doing? He says, "Well," he says, "I got to go over there and go see some Portuguese people and sell some. I don't know if it was salad mess. I forget what the name of it was, but it was like." So I said, "Well, how are you gonna do that?" He goes, "Well, I'm gonna find Portuguese houses." I said, "What do you mean?" So he gets out of the highway. We go to these things, and we're going to this neighborhood, and he's just driving around. All of a sudden, he hit the brakes, and he backed up a little bit, and he says, "Okay, that house is Portuguese." I said, "Huh?" He goes, "Yeah, the Portuguese people over there." I says, "Okay, well, whatever." So he goes, opens the trunk, and gets his demo kit.
Demo kit. Door-to-door salesman, just knocking doors.
So he says the lady he hit the ring bell, the bell, and the lady opened the door, and he says to her in Portuguese, "Hello, good day, lady. How you doing?" And he starts talking to her, and she's speaking Portuguese to him. I'm like, "What the heck? How does he know that? How did that even happen, right?"
And
Because
how old are you at the time? You're probably teenager, early?
I think I was 16 or something.
All right.
But he wanted to teach me to do that so I could do that, to make some money because he was making good money with it.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and he does this presentation to this lady, and she wanted to buy a set, right? He goes, "Well, if you want to do another presentation this afternoon and bring some people over, if 3 people buy the set, yours will be free." So she said, "Okay." So they set it up, and he went back over there, and she had 4 or 5 couples there that were, and 3 of them bought. So she got hers
So
for
he does the so he does the meeting.
yeah. And then he told me the following Saturday, he says, "Hey, I want you to go with me to the sales meeting because I want you to see if this is something you could do." So I went to the sales meeting. Now, here's the funny thing. There's probably about 20 salespeople in there. The whole thing was in English. My father didn't speak English.
At all.
No. I mean, very, very little. And
Right.
then when they were going over the paperwork, it's like 7 pages of paperwork and stuff, and I'm like, how in the world does he fill this thing out and not and know what he's doing? I don't understand. It just blow my mind. It's like, wow.
So he and your mom made the decision to come from the Azores to Hudson, Mass.
Yeah.
And he didn't speak English. And I
Nope.
know you didn't either, but the kids were put into school. And so within a year, all of you guys spoke English, but your dad never did. That's fascinating.
Yeah, but now I think I forgot English. I don't speak English that well anymore.
No, I know that, but that's all right. We forgive you for that. That's so funny because what we have in common, my dad grew up in Ireland. He was the oldest of six. I love this story. And on June 10th, 1949, he met his buddy, Steve Brady, and they hopped on a boat to come to America. They came to
Yeah.
New York City. He had an aunt who lived in New York City, who he never met. And she said, you can come stay with me and get settled. And he had another aunt. So my grandmother was the youngest of 13. And four of them had come to the States. My dad's generation, he was the oldest of six. He's the only one who did. And so he had an Aunt Nora, who would be my great aunt in Florida, who loaned him the money, $60, which he paid back with interest for the boat trip. And it took them 8 days. So, yeah, no, June 2nd, June 10th, he landed in New York City, 1949. And I said, you had never met your aunt, Aunt M, I knew her as. And he said to me, no, neither had my mother. And I thought he got confused with the generations he's telling us. I realized, no, Aunt M was the oldest of 13. My grandmother was the youngest. Aunt M had already moved to the U.S. when my grandmother was born. So for her entire life, she never met her sister. And my dad met her first because he lived with her for a year and a half. And I think about him as an immigrant into New York City. Language wasn't an issue. But I just think about what that set in motion. He met my mom, who was a New York City girl, Bayside, Queens, and myself and my sister and our family, and then my family and our kids, and how that decision to get on that boat and come to America, what that set in motion. I'm just eternally grateful. It's amazing.
So languages are awesome. We hired this company to do some tile work in our house, and the lady, it's a husband and wife team, and they're really nice. We really like them. And they said, well, tomorrow the two guys are going to come over here and do the tile thing in the front, under the front door there. Says now the two really good workers. They're from Brazil, right? So Brazil's people speak Portuguese, right?
Oh, I know.
So they got there, right, and they're trying to talk to me, but their English was really, really rough, and they're having a tough time. So I acted like I was mad. I says, hey, in this house, we don't speak English, we speak Portuguese. But I was saying it in Portuguese, right? And they were like so happy because they're like, whoa.
That's like your dad. Like, we found a Portuguese house to go talk to. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. But he found several houses during that day. You know, he went to that one first, then he went to 3 or 4 more, and he got in, the presentation. And then he went back to the other house because the lady had a bunch of people there. But he was, because some of the things that they do outside the house are things that
you could tell by the decor.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I was like, wow.
He went back in and said, Charlotte, get the kit. Oh, that's awesome.